A courtroom, a judge, known for his harsh verdicts, and a teenager who looks like he's in the wrong place. This isn't just any legal battle. It's Marcus Robinson's stand against a system rigged against him. Armed only with a sharp mind and a determination to save his family, Marcus faces the scorn of a society quick to judge him by his appearance. Stay tuned as we unravel how a perceived underdog challenges the status quo, proving that courage and intellect can uncover the truth, no matter the odds. In the heart of a bustling city, overshadowed by towering skyscrapers and the relentless pace of urban life, lies a neighborhood where the glitz of downtown seems like a distant world. This is where Marcus Robinson, a 17-year-old black teenager with a keen intellect and a quiet strength, calls home. His community, marked by time-worn buildings and streets that tell tales of hardship, is a stark contrast to the prosperity that lies just a few miles away. Marcus lives with his mother, Angela Robinson, in a modest apartment that, despite its peeling paint and the occasional drip from an old pipe, is filled with warmth and love. Angela, a single mother, works tirelessly as a cleaner in office buildings downtown, often taking on double shifts to ensure she can pay rent and provide for Marcus. She is a woman of resilience, her face carrying the subtle signs of her struggles, yet always lit by a smile for her son. The local courthouse, an imposing structure of stone and stern-faced statues, stands as a testament to the rule of law, a place where Judge Thompson presides with an iron fist and a reputation for unforgiving verdicts. Known for his stringent rulings, Judge Thompson's courtroom is one where many feel the heavy weight of justice, and few leave without feeling its sharp edge. Opposing them in the legal arena is attorney Leo Clarkson, a figure of authority and arrogance, draped in finely tailored suits that match his smug demeanor. Leo, seasoned in the art of law and little affected by the personal stories that come before the court, sees his clients as cases to be won, not lives affected by his actions. As the story unfolds, this neighborhood, its people, and the looming courthouse set the stage for a battle not just of legal wits, but of fundamental human rights. Marcus, underestimated by those who see only his youth and the color of his skin, stands as a beacon of hope and defiance. With each day, he grows more determined to shield his mother from an unjust eviction that threatens to uproot their lives. The whispers of injustice have long echoed through the streets. Marcus walks. Tales of families forced from their homes and individuals crushed under the weight of unfair practices are common. But in Angela's case, the sting of eviction is not just a tale of sorrow, but a palpable fear that grips her heart. She has always been meticulous about her responsibilities, scraping together every dime to keep a roof over their heads. One chilly evening, as Marcus returns from the local library, where he spends hours not just studying for school, but also learning about the rights tenants have, he finds his mother sitting at the kitchen table, an unusual look of defeat darkening her features. In her hands, she holds an eviction notice, cold, official, and utterly impersonal. "They say we haven't paid rent for months, Marcus." Angela's voice shakes as she hands the paper to her son. "But you know I've kept up. You know I have." The paper trembles in Marcus's hands as he reads. The words seem to blur, but the message is clear. They are being evicted, unjustly. It's a moment that crystallizes the path ahead for him. No longer can he remain a passive observer in his own life story. The fight to save their home pushes him to the forefront of a battle he never expected to fight. Armed with nothing but his sharp mind and the unwavering support of his mother, Marcus begins to delve into the complexities of tenant law. Each night, the small, cramped space of their apartment turns into a makeshift study as Marcus pores over books and articles, his determination fueled by the injustice burning in his chest. As Marcus prepares to step into a role he was forced into, the community watches, some with skepticism, others with quiet hope. The courtroom, a place where futures are often decided by the gavel's final bang, looms large in his mind. But with Angela's quiet strength supporting him and the collective hope of his community behind him, Marcus readies himself to confront not just the legal system, but the societal boundaries that have long dictated the limits of what he can achieve. This introduction sets the stage for a narrative of resilience, justice, and the power of an underestimated young man's courage to challenge the status quo and change his fate. In a corner of the city where skyscrapers give way to stretches of aged brick, and the relentless hum of traffic fades into quieter, albeit harsher realities, Marcus Robinson and his mother Angela navigate life. Their neighborhood, often overlooked by the glossy brochures and city planners, bears the scars of neglect and the burdens of a community fighting against the tides of economic and racial disparities. Angela Robinson, with each daybreak, joins a stream of tireless workers flooding the city's arteries, cleaning offices that tower over her own dimly lit apartment. Despite the grueling hours, her paychecks are barely enough to cover the rent and necessities. It's a relentless cycle, one that has tightened around her and Marcus with the unforgiving grip of poverty. The neighborhood itself tells a similar story. Streets lined with corner stores, boarded up buildings, and vibrant murals speak to the spirit and struggles of its residents. Here, small businesses fight to survive among chain stores, and local kids like Marcus face realities that contrast starkly with the curated green spaces and playgrounds just a few miles downtown. Marcus, in his late teens, stands at a precipice between youth and the stark responsibilities of adulthood. His school, like many in underfunded districts, struggles to provide its students with the basics, let alone the extracurriculars or advanced courses offered in more affluent areas. Despite these challenges, Marcus's intellect and resourcefulness shine. He finds solace and escape in books and the crumpled pages of used textbooks from the local library, where he educates himself far beyond the classroom's reach. The systemic barriers are palpable. In school, Marcus confronts low expectations from teachers, overwhelmed by overcrowded classrooms and limited resources. In his neighborhood, he navigates a landscape marked by vigilance, where interactions with law enforcement are frequent and fraught with tension. The racial profiling and economic stigma shape daily life, with opportunities seeming both distant and contingent upon escaping the very community that has shaped him. For Angela, the challenge is dual: protecting her son from the disillusionment that threatens to engulf the youth around them and keeping their home, a constant battle against rising rents driven by creeping gentrification. Discussions in hushed tones about developers circling like vultures over their community are commonplace. Neighbors share stories of eviction notices served with morning coffee, their legality dubious, but their impact devastating. The eviction notice that arrives at their door one bleak evening is a catalyst, turning simmering fears into a roaring fire. Angela, who has meticulously recorded every payment, feels the ground shift beneath her. The notice claims unpaid rent for months, a blatant falsehood. It's a stark reminder of how systems supposed to protect individuals like her often fail them profoundly. Marcus watches his mother fold under the weight of this new threat. The same hands that had soothed his fevers and applauded his school achievements now tremble with uncertainty. His response, fueled by a mix of anger and a budding sense of justice, is to dive into the legal texts that seem to hold the key to maintaining the fragile security they've carved out in their corner of the world. In his quest, Marcus uncovers a disturbing pattern of evictions targeting Black families and low-income residents, often based on fabricated claims by landlords leveraging the legal system to their benefit. These landlords, backed by legal teams and an intimate knowledge of systemic loopholes, execute plans that displace families, disrupt communities, and reshape neighborhoods. This knowledge does not deter Marcus. Rather, it steels his resolve. The laws he learns about, are not just abstract rules, but lifelines that could anchor his family in a sea of instability. Night after night, the dim light of his desk lamp casts long shadows as he maps out their defense. Each case precedent a stepping stone towards a future where justice is not just a privilege for the affluent. As the court date looms, Angela and Marcus brace themselves. They fortify their bond, turning their small living room into a war room where strategies are formed over cups of strong coffee and the scribble of markers on a whiteboard they've salvaged from the curb. Together, they plot a course through the treacherous waters of the legal system, determined to prove their case, uphold their rights, and in doing so, they light a beacon for others who may find themselves in similar straits. This backdrop of struggle against systemic injustice not only frames their immediate fight, but also paints a broader picture of resilience and defiance. It's within this crucible that Marcus's character is forged and tested, transforming him from a bright student into a burgeoning advocate armed with knowledge, fueled by righteous indignation, and supported by the unyielding strength of his mother's love. As the summer heat settled over the city, bringing with it a heaviness that seemed to amplify the struggles of Marcus and Angela Robinson, an unexpected and chilling breeze of reality swept into their lives through the crevice of their front door. A fraudulent eviction notice. The paper was stark, official, and terrifying in its clarity. It stated that Angela had failed to pay rent for the past 3 months, a claim as false as it was absurd. The consequences were dire. They had 30 days to vacate their home. Angela's hands trembled as she held the notice, her eyes scanning the words repeatedly, hoping each read would reveal it to be a misunderstanding, a mistake that could easily be rectified. But the reality was undeniable, and the timing couldn't have been worse. In the midst of her shock, Angela's thoughts immediately turned to Marcus. She had shielded him from as much of life's harshness as she could, but this was too big, too threatening to their very existence to keep from him. When Marcus came home that evening, his mind full of plans for his upcoming senior year, he found his mother sitting at the kitchen table, the eviction notice like a dark cloud hovering over the room. The news hit Marcus like a physical blow. The injustice of the situation ignited a fire within him, a burning desire to protect his mother and their home. Angela tried to calm her son, her voice breaking as she spoke. "Marcus, we can't fight this. These people, they have lawyers, resources. We have nothing." But Marcus refused to accept defeat. "No, Mom, we can't just give up. There's got to be a way to fight this. The law has to protect us somehow," he asserted, his voice a mixture of anger and determination. That night, as Angela went to bed burdened with worry, Marcus turned to the internet, his only resource. He searched for anything that could help them: tenant rights, eviction laws, legal aid. The more he read, the more he realized how complex the legal system was, but also how filled it was with potential avenues for defense. It was a world he had never imagined diving into, yet here he was, poring over legal statutes and cases that stretched into the early hours of the morning. Over the next few days, Marcus transformed their small living room into his makeshift law office. Books and papers littered the table, legal websites bookmarked on his laptop, and notes scribbled with legal jargon he was just beginning to understand. Angela watched her son delve deeper into the legal battle, her heart swelling with pride, yet aching with fear for the burden he had shouldered. Marcus's determination led him to discover a local legal clinic where retired lawyers volunteered. He hesitated at first, unsure if they would take him seriously, but desperation drove him through their doors. There he met Mr. Davidson, a retired attorney whose stern demeanor initially intimidated Marcus, but soon revealed a deep-seated passion for justice and a willingness to help those caught in the merciless gears of the legal system. Mr. Davidson listened intently as Marcus explained their situation. With a nod, he began to guide Marcus through the process, teaching him how to gather evidence, how to argue in court, and most importantly, how to craft a defense that was both logical and legally sound. "You have a right to fight this eviction," Mr. Davidson affirmed, his voice firm. "The law is as much a tool for the poor as it is for the rich, and don't you forget that." Empowered by Mr. Davidson's mentorship, Marcus spent every moment he could spare at the clinic, absorbing every piece of advice, every strategy discussed. At home, he explained the legal details to Angela, who listened with a mix of awe and fear. "You really think we can win?" she would ask, her voice small. "We have to believe we can," Marcus would respond, his resolve unwavering. As the court date approached, Marcus's preparation intensified. He organized his notes, rehearsed his arguments, and visualized standing in court, defending their rights. Angela, seeing her son's commitment, found herself drawn into the battle with a renewed sense of hope. Together, they reviewed their evidence, payment receipts Angela had meticulously saved, letters from their landlord, and Marcus's detailed notes. The night before their hearing, the apartment was quiet, the tension palpable. Marcus looked over at his mother, who had supported him through every high and low of his life. "Tomorrow, we fight not just for our home, but for every family who's ever been wronged like this," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Angela reached across the table, taking his hand. "I'm so proud of you, Marcus. No matter what happens, remember that." The day of the court hearing arrived with a gray morning sky reflecting the turmoil in Marcus's heart. Dressed in his best clothes, which still felt out of place in the somber setting of the courtroom, Marcus stood beside his mother, ready to face whatever came their way. His hands were steady, his resolve clear. Today, he was not just a son, not just a student, but an advocate, a defender of his family's rights. Today, he would make his stand, armed with knowledge, driven by justice, and supported by the unwavering love of his mother. Marcus's initiation into the world of legal defense was marked by an insatiable drive to learn and a fierce determination to protect his family. Every evening after his part-time job at a local grocery store, he dove into the complex and often arcane language of tenant law, fortified by a resolve that grew stronger with each statute he deciphered and each legal precedent he uncovered. At the legal clinic, under the tutelage of Mr. Davidson, Marcus transformed from a novice overwhelmed by legalese to a poised young man equipped with a burgeoning understanding of legal procedures. Mr. Davidson, recognizing the spark in Marcus, took a personal interest in his case, often staying late to go over the finer points of courtroom etiquette and strategy. "Remember, the law is logical, but it's also about telling a story," Mr. Davidson would say, his finger wagging for emphasis. "Your job is to make the judge see your mother through your eyes, as a victim of deceit, and not just another case number." Together, they pored over similar cases, analyzing why some tenants won while others lost, distilling lessons and tactics. Mr. Davidson provided Marcus with access to legal databases and introduced him to pivotal case law that aligned with their defense against the fraudulent eviction. Back at home, Marcus converted their modest dining table into his command center. Maps of their legal strategy were taped to the walls, and piles of photocopied laws, court rulings, and handwritten notes covered the surface. Angela, ever supportive, took on the role of mock judge in their evening rehearsals, posing challenging questions and prompting Marcus to refine his arguments. As the court date drew nearer, the reality of what they were about to face settled heavily on their shoulders. Angela, seeing the weight bearing down on her son, often took his hands in hers, offering words of encouragement. "You're doing more than I ever could have dreamed, Marcus. No matter what happens, I am proud of you," she would say, her voice thick with emotion. Their evenings were spent in preparation and reflection. Marcus meticulously organized his presentation, ensuring each piece of evidence was clearly labeled and easy to reference during the hearing. He wrote and rewrote his opening statement, each version tighter and more compelling than the last. Angela helped by researching the landlord's history, discovering forums and social media groups where former tenants shared stories of similar mistreatments. These anecdotes were not admissible in court, but they provided a deeper understanding of the opponent's tactics and reinforced the righteousness of their cause. Some nights, doubt would creep into Marcus's mind, the enormity of what he was undertaking pressing down on him. During these moments, Angela was his rock, reminding him of the countless evenings he had spent studying and preparing. "You know this law better than anyone else in that room, Will. You're ready for this," she assured him, her confidence bolstering his spirits. The community also rallied around them. Neighbors who had heard about their plight offered words of encouragement and small acts of kindness, such as dinners brought over to save Angela the trouble of cooking after long shifts at work. This groundswell of support reminded Marcus of the broader implications of their fight. It was not just about one apartment or one family, but about justice for anyone who might find themselves powerless against unscrupulous landlords. The night before the court hearing, Mr. Davidson joined Marcus and Angela at their apartment for one last review session. They walked through the entire case, from the opening statement to the planned responses for potential cross-examination questions. Mr. Davidson's presence in their small living room, amid the legal documents and notes, felt like a final bolstering of their defenses, a closing of the ranks before the battle. "Your understanding of the facts and the law will serve you well, but remember to keep your composure. Stay respectful, no matter what gets thrown at you," Mr. Davidson advised, his voice earnest. "Show them not just that you're right, but that you deserve to win." That night, after Mr. Davidson left, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat at the table, reviewing his notes under the soft glow of the kitchen lamp. Angela joined him, wrapping a blanket around his shoulders. Together, they sat in silence, a mother and son on the eve of a defining moment, their shared resolve a quiet force in the dim light. As dawn broke over the city, Marcus packed his binder one last time, each document a testament to the months of preparation, each note a reminder of the journey from despair to defiance. With his mother by his side, he stepped out of their apartment, ready to confront the system with dignity and determination. This preparation phase not only equipped Marcus with the legal knowledge and tactical acumen needed for the court battle, but also deepened the emotional bond between him and Angela, highlighting their shared resilience and the community support that bolstered their spirits. This meticulous preparation laid the groundwork for the courtroom drama that was to unfold, setting the stage for a confrontation that was as much about personal vindication as it was about legal victory. On the morning of the hearing, the courtroom was awash with the soft morning light filtering through high windows, casting long shadows across the wooden benches that were slowly filling with spectators, other litigants, and the curious. At the front, the judge's bench loomed, an imposing altar at which justice was served, often with a swift, merciless hand. Today, that hand belonged to Judge Thompson, whose reputation for stern rulings and brisk efficiency preceded him. Marcus and Angela arrived early, taking their place at the defendant's table. Marcus, dressed in his best suit, which still hung slightly loose on his youthful frame, arranged his notes and documents meticulously, each piece positioned for quick access. Angela, beside him, offered a silent prayer as she watched her son transform from the boy she raised into the advocate he had become. As the clock struck the hour, Judge Thompson entered, his robes flowing behind him, and the room hushed to a palpable silence. "All rise," the bailiff commanded, and the session began. Marcus stood tall, his nerves tightly coiled, yet controlled. The judge's eyes swept over the courtroom, lingering on Marcus with a flicker of surprise at his youthful appearance. "Mr. Robinson, are you representing yourself in this matter?" Judge Thompson inquired, his tone laced with a hint of disbelief. "Yes, Your Honor," Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the flutter in his chest. "I am prepared to defend my case." The judge nodded, though his expression remained skeptical. "Very well. Let's proceed." Attorney Leo Clarkson, representing the landlord, was the epitome of legal prowess, with his sharp suit and even sharper gaze. He approached the podium with a confident stride, casting a dismissive glance at Marcus. "In this case, the facts are simple," Clarkson began, his voice resonant in the quiet room. "The tenant has failed to pay rent for 3 consecutive months. We seek a straightforward resolution. Eviction." When it was his turn, Marcus approached the podium. The walk felt like crossing an immense chasm, each step resonating on the wooden floor. He faced the judge, took a deep breath, and began. "Your Honor, the claim that my mother has not paid rent is categorically false." Marcus's voice grew stronger as he continued. "We have here," he paused, presenting the documents, "proof of every payment made on time, which I will detail." As Marcus presented his evidence, the courtroom was silent, the air thick with anticipation. He walked the court through bank statements, rent receipts, and correspondence with the landlord. With each piece of evidence, he not only presented the facts, but also wove the narrative of his mother's dedication to maintaining her obligations despite her modest means. Throughout his presentation, Marcus faced interruptions from Clarkson, who challenged every point with a seasoned ease. "Isn't it true, Mr. Robinson, that these documents could be fabricated? How does the court know they are authentic?" Clarkson's tone was condescending, designed to unsettle. Marcus, prepared for this, replied without missing a beat. "Each document has been verified by bank officials and by statements from the landlord's office. We have affidavits attesting to their authenticity." Judge Thompson, observing the exchange, began to show signs of engagement, his initial skepticism slowly giving way to interest. Marcus's ability to counter Clarkson's tactics not only demonstrated his grasp of the law, but also began to dismantle the opposing counsel's narrative. The climax of the courtroom battle came when Clarkson introduced a surprise witness, a property manager who testified that Angela had admitted to him in conversation about missing payments. Marcus's cross-examination was pivotal. He questioned the witness's credibility, highlighting inconsistencies in his testimony compared to earlier statements. "Your Honor," Marcus addressed the court, his confidence surging, "this witness's statement contradicts the documented evidence we have shown. It's clear there is an attempt to mislead the court." As Marcus made his closing argument, he didn't just speak to the judge. He spoke for every tenant who had ever faced unjust treatment, his words resonating with a quiet power. "This case is not only about whether rent was paid, it's about integrity, both of my mother's and of the system that is supposed to protect tenants from wrongful eviction." Judge Thompson leaned back, his gaze piercing as he reviewed the notes he had taken during the proceedings. The courtroom awaited his decision, the tension almost tangible. Finally, he looked up. "Mr. Robinson," he began, his voice measured, "you have presented a compelling case. It's refreshing to see such dedication and thoroughness." The judge paused, allowing his words to sink in. "Given the evidence presented, I am inclined to rule in favor of the defendant. The eviction notice is hereby dismissed." Relief washed over Marcus and Angela like a wave. They had won, against all odds, their faith in justice affirmed. Angela's eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but of pride and joy. Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders, his journey from a worried son to a victorious defender complete. As they left the courtroom, their steps light with the buoyancy of their victory, Marcus knew this was not just a personal win, but a beacon for others in similar fights. He had defended their home, yes, but he had also upheld principles of justice and fairness, proving that even in the face of daunting challenges, the truth could prevail. This first courtroom battle was just the beginning for Marcus, but it was a profound demonstration of what one determined individual, supported by love and armed with knowledge, could achieve. The courtroom hushed as Marcus prepared to present the key piece of evidence that would pivot the case in their favor. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Every spectator, from bystanders to legal professionals, leaned forward, their attention fixed on the young man who had commanded the room far beyond anyone's expectations. Marcus cleared his throat and adjusted his notes, his hands steady despite the palpable tension. He addressed the court with a newfound gravitas, aware that the next moments were crucial. "Your Honor," Marcus began, his voice echoing in the still courtroom, "I wish to present a critical piece of evidence that will demonstrate the fraudulent nature of the eviction notice served to my mother." He carefully retrieved a document from his meticulously organized binder and held it up for the court to see. "This, Your Honor, is a copy of the eviction notice we received. I would like to draw the court's attention to the signature at the bottom of this notice," Marcus explained, as he approached the bench to hand the document to Judge Thompson. As the judge examined the document, Marcus continued, "The signature purports to be that of a notary public named Mrs. Linda Schmidt. However, Your Honor, Mrs. Schmidt retired from her notarial duties over 2 years ago, a fact that can be easily verified through public records." Marcus then presented a series of documents, including Mrs. Schmidt's notary public registration history and her retirement announcement. These documents were displayed on a projector for all in the courtroom to see. The evidence was irrefutable, showing clearly the date Mrs. Schmidt ceased to be a registered notary. "The significance of this, Your Honor," Marcus emphasized, "is that any documents notarized by Mrs. Schmidt post-retirement are legally invalid. This includes the eviction notice falsely served to my mother." Attorney Leo Clarkson rose, his face a mask of professionalism, but his eyes betraying a flicker of concern. "Your Honor, while the defense has presented an interesting theory, the mere retirement of a notary does not inherently indicate fraudulence," he argued, attempting to downplay the evidence. "May I remind the counsel," Marcus interjected, his confidence bolstered by his evidence, "that the law is clear on this matter. An eviction notice must be legally notarized to be enforceable. This notice, based on a fraudulent notarization, cannot possibly hold." Judge Thompson nodded thoughtfully, his eyes moving between Marcus and the evidence displayed. "Continue, Mr. Robinson," he instructed, signaling for Marcus to proceed with his argument. Marcus then took the opportunity to strengthen his position by citing legal precedents where similar cases had been overturned due to notarial misconduct or fraud. He quoted case law, his fluency in legal jargon and statutes impressing even the seasoned professionals in the room. "As you can see from these precedents, Your Honor, the courts have consistently ruled in favor of tenants when procedural errors, especially those concerning legal formalities as fundamental as notarization, are brought to light." The courtroom was silent, the gravity of Marcus's presentation settling over the proceedings. The young man's ability to articulate and defend his position was not just impressive, it was transformative, shifting the dynamics of power in the courtroom. Judge Thompson, known for his stringent adherence to the letter of the law, scrutinized the documents before him. His expression was unreadable, but there was a sense that the scales of justice were tipping in favor of Marcus and Angela. "Mr. Clarkson," Judge Thompson finally said, turning to the opposing counsel, "do you have any counter-evidence to refute this claim of fraudulence?" Clarkson, visibly unsettled by the strength of Marcus's presentation, shuffled his papers, but could produce no substantive counter-argument. "No, Your Honor, we do not have counter-evidence at this time." It was a pivotal moment. Marcus had not only presented irrefutable evidence, but had also expertly defended it against the challenges posed by a seasoned attorney. The courtroom, once a battleground of legal prowess, had become a stage where truth, presented by a young, unseasoned but fiercely determined advocate, shone brightly. Judge Thompson leaned back in his chair, the lines on his face softening as he made notes. The air in the courtroom felt charged, every spectator and participant aware that they were witnessing a rare overturning of expectations. Seizing the moment, Marcus delivered his closing argument with a passion that resonated throughout the courtroom. This case, Your Honor, is about more than just an eviction. It's about justice and fairness in the face of deceit. It's about protecting the rights of those who are often overlooked by the system. My mother and I stand before you, asking for justice, justice that upholds not only the letter of the law but its spirit. As Marcus concluded, the courtroom erupted in a low murmur. The audience moved by the young man's eloquence and the clear justice of his cause. As Judge Thompson called for a brief recess to deliberate, Marcus returned to his seat beside his mother, who grasped his hand tightly, her eyes brimming with tears of pride and relief. Regardless of the outcome, they had fought a good fight, elevating truth and integrity over deceit and manipulation. The climax of the courtroom battle not only marked a turning point in the legal case, but also in Marcus's personal journey from a son fighting to protect his family's home to a formidable advocate for justice. The evidence of the fraudulent eviction notice, meticulously presented and defended, stood as a testament to what could be achieved with determination, preparation, and a deep commitment to justice. As the courtroom settled back into silence after the recess, all eyes were on Judge Thompson as he returned to his bench. The gravity of the moment was palpable. It was clear that the decision made today would reverberate far beyond the walls of this courtroom. Judge Thompson cleared his throat, his eyes scanning the courtroom before settling on Marcus and his mother. In the matter of the eviction notice served to Angela Robinson, he began, his voice steady and authoritative. This court has found compelling evidence of procedural misconduct regarding the notarization of the eviction document. He paused, allowing his words to sink in. Furthermore, he continued, the defense, led commendably by Mr. Marcus Robinson, has presented a well-argued case supported by both factual evidence and legal precedent. It is not only the right of a tenant to expect fair treatment under the law, but also the responsibility of those in positions of power to ensure justice is administered without prejudice or malpractice. Turning his gaze directly to Marcus, Judge Thompson added, Mr. Robinson, your conduct in court has been exemplary. You have demonstrated a profound understanding of legal principles and a commendable dedication to justice. This court is persuaded not only by your arguments, but also by your evident commitment to the principles of fairness and equity. With a firm tap of his gavel, Judge Thompson delivered his final verdict. The eviction notice against Angela Robinson is hereby dismissed. The plaintiff is ordered to cease all eviction actions and, furthermore, to review their internal processes to prevent such occurrences in the future. The courtroom erupted in a soft chorus of approval from those in attendance, many of whom were community members who had come to support Angela and Marcus. Angela herself let out a deep sigh of relief, tears of joy and relief streaming down her cheeks as she embraced her son. Outside the courthouse, the news of Marcus's victory spread quickly among the community. Neighbors and friends who had followed the case came forward to congratulate him, many expressing their own struggles with housing issues and how this victory gave them hope. Local media picked up the story, highlighting Marcus as a beacon of community activism and a symbol of what could be achieved against the odds. Marcus felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not just for winning his mother's case, but for setting a precedent that might help others in similar situations. The victory was more than legal. It was a moral triumph that spoke to the heart of the community's ongoing struggles with housing insecurity and tenants' rights. In the weeks that followed, Marcus reflected on the journey he had undertaken. He had started this path out of desperation to save his family's home, but along the way, he had discovered a deep passion for the law and advocacy. Encouraged by Mr. Davidson and others at the legal clinic, he began to consider a career in law, aiming to specialize in civil rights and tenant advocacy. His mother, Angela, supported this new ambition wholeheartedly, seeing in her son Not just the young man she had raised, but a budding legal mind who could change the lives of many. "You've got a gift for this, Marcus. You've turned our struggle into a fight for everyone," she told him one evening as they sat in their now secure home discussing his future. Marcus's victory also had broader implications for housing rights in his city. Inspired by his success, a local tenants' rights organization reached out to him to speak at workshops and seminars, helping to educate other tenants on their rights and how to protect themselves against unfair practices. His case became a cornerstone discussion in a larger debate about housing policies in the city, with policymakers reaching out to him for insights into how legislation could better protect tenants. Marcus became an advocate for change, using his knowledge and experience to push for reforms that would ensure fair treatment for all tenants, regardless of their economic status. As Marcus looked to the future, he knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but felt prepared to face it with the same determination and integrity that had brought him this far. The case had transformed him, molding him into an advocate not just for his mother, but for anyone who needed a voice against injustice. In the reflection of his victory, Marcus saw not just a personal success, but a call to action, a mandate to use his abilities for the greater good, ensuring that the justice served in his mother's case was a beginning, not an end. As the dust settled on the landmark victory in the courtroom, the implications of Marcus Robinson's successful defense against a fraudulent eviction began to ripple outward, reaching far beyond the personal triumph for him and his mother. This case, a clear victory for tenants' rights, had become a beacon of hope and a tangible example of the power of legal knowledge and civic engagement. Marcus's victory was not just about one unjust eviction notice. It was about challenging a systemic issue that affects countless tenants. By exposing the fraudulent practices of a landlord and highlighting the gaps in the legal protections for tenants, the case served as a catalyst for discussions on housing rights and the need for more robust protections. It underscored the necessity for tenants to be aware of their rights and for legal systems to support those without the means to hire representation. This case also illuminated the profound impact of perseverance and justice. Marcus, a young man with no prior legal training, took on a system rigged against tenants like his mother and emerged victorious. His journey from a concerned son to a passionate advocate for justice exemplifies how determination and a steadfast belief in fairness can overcome formidable obstacles. His success is a testament to the idea that justice, when pursued with relentless dedication, is achievable. The story of Marcus and Angela Robinson challenges us to reflect on the societal biases that pervade many aspects of our legal and housing systems. It compels us to question how many other tenants have faced similar injustices but lacked the resources or knowledge to fight back. This case serves as a critical reminder of the work that remains to be done to ensure that justice and fairness are accessible to all, not just those who can afford it. To those who hear this story, let it be more than just an inspiring tale. Let it be a call to action. Engage with your local community, learn about your rights, and support initiatives that aim to protect and empower tenants. Consider how you can contribute to making the legal system more equitable and just. Whether through advocacy, education, or simply by sharing stories like Marcus's, your involvement can drive change. Furthermore, let Marcus's victory inspire you to stand up against the injustices you witness in your community. His story is proof that one person's courage to challenge the status quo can lead to significant societal change. It reminds us that when we come together to support one another, especially the most vulnerable among us, we can build a more just and compassionate world.